Hello everyone, and welcome to another Final Fantasy XIV lore video. Today we're talking about a topic that could arguably be one of the main catalysts contributing to the current era Warrior of Light's journey, as well as a permanent mark upon Eorzea's history. The plan to pull the lesser moon Dalamud from the sky, known as Project Meteor. The story indirectly begins, like many things, with the reign of the Allagan Empire during the Third Astral Era, with the intent of the structure to collect and harvest solar energy to be channeled to the Crystal Tower and orders of Emperor Xande. At the time, the moon did still contain the Elder Primal Bahamut, but the worm's purpose was to be a catalyst for the collection of energy, with imprisonment being in essence a side effect. A miscalculation of the levels of energy created by the moon, however, resulted in a devastating earthquake that rent the land and led way into the Fourth Umbral Era, which coincided with the eventual fall of the Allagan Empire. After this, the moon remained in its place, orbiting the greater moon while staying dormant, with Bahamut remaining in its captivity. Fast forwarding several centuries and a handful more eras, the Garlean Empire currently attempts to hold sway over key positions within Eorzea, while doing their utmost to free the continent from the primal threat, believing them false deities incapable of clashing with the Garlean forces. To this end, a rising legatus of the 7th Legion, known as Nael van Darnus, began experimenting with lost Allagan technology, hoping to discover a means to cool the lesser moon towards Hydaelyn. But as to the means by which Nael obtained this opportunity, we need to take a look at their history. Eula Darnus was born in Garlemald as the eldest daughter of House Darnus, one of the high houses of the Empire that was privy to Allagan's secrets, passed down through generations. She regularly dreamed of becoming a chirurgeon for the army, seen as a standard, respectable position for the status of her family. She sought to follow her brother, Nael Darnus, into the Garlean military, but one day he returned from a battlefront with a mortal wound, and eventually died of his injuries, but not before telling Eula that their father had planned the so-called suicide mission. Overcome by grief, Eula unsurprisingly blamed her father for Nael's death, and assassinated him, with the public story being that he died of an incurable illness. After this, Eula took up her brother's mantle and began going by his name, the new Nael Darnus, rising to a legatus within the army. She very quickly had her father's guards killed, causing public opinion to widely believe that Nael may have had a hand in her father's demise. Although the majority of citizens, as well as many of the Garlean leaders at the time, condemned such actions, Solus Zosgalvus, Emperor of Garlemald, saw Nael as someone with potential, willing to push aside anything to achieve their goals. Following her rise to legatus, Nael began her investigation into a means to control or destroy the primal threat across the continent, leading to her restoring an Allagan artifact owned by House Darnus. Discovering that the object could interact with Dalamud, she brought the concept of the plan to the Emperor, who approved it for research. The artifact was brought to the Bozja Citadel, where it was studied by researchers led by Midas Nan Garland, father of Cid. Garland has surmised that the moon was not in fact a mere celestial entity, but the source of vast energy we already know it to be, a move to propose that it be used upon Eorzea as the Garlean's own Meteor, bringing it crashing down to wipe out the primals. However, partway into the project, Garland managed to make contact with the lesser moon, but instead of being able to control its movement, the moon unleashed a horribly powerful blast right towards Bozja Citadel. Its power was such that the blast instantly vaporized not only Midas and his crew, but the entirety of the surrounding city as well as the citadel. The devastation was so immense that the disaster was unable to be covered up by the efforts of the Emperor, and became public knowledge, although the exact details were known only to the High Command of Garlemald, with the common name of the event coming to be known as the Bozja Incident. For Nael, the failure of the initial project caused her sanity to wane, and although she appealed to the Emperor to continue the project as the contact made with Dalamud was successful, the Emperor deemed it far too dangerous if the moon remained unable to be controlled, and sent Nael and her 7th Legion to the Eastern Theatre. She would remain there until around the time the Empire was thwarted in the Battle of Silvertear Skies, and returned from the east claiming to have discovered knowledge of a way to control Dalamud's descent. Still adamant on Midas' original plan of having the moon crash upon Eorzea to wipe out the beast tribes and prevent them from summoning their primals, Nael appealed to the Emperor once again, who, against most public opinion, resurrected the project, not knowing that Nael had obtained knowledge behind the truth of the moon, being Bahamut's long-kept prison. After this, Nael was sent back into Eorzea with her 7th Legion, now known as the White Raven, who warned adventurers and travellers about the false prophets known as Archons, with one in particular, Raine, spreading rumours of a coming calamity. She meets the Warrior of Light shortly after their initial victory over Ifrit, and noted their resistance to joining the Imperial cause, engaging in a small skirmish and using energy from the Ethereal Gate to fire Bradamante at the adventurers. Following the encounter, the Warrior of Light experiences a vision via the Echo of Nael conversing with Gaius van Baelsar, the latter disagreeing over the plan to use Dalamud in the effort against the Primals. But Nael promptly informs him that she managed to discover 3 tomestones that would allow the Empire to control the Red Moon properly. The Warrior of Light encounters Nael once more in the aftermath of defeating Garuda, where she reveals that the defeat of the Primals were a key to accessing the true power of Dalamud. Once the fortress known as Castrum Novum was completed, the Warrior of Light, along with many significant allies from the Eorzean Alliance, managed to storm the Castrum and destroy the transmitter being used to contact the Red Moon. Nael appears out of nowhere, blasting away the Alliance, and gives a speech praising Dalamud, as she points Bradamante skyward, and the Red Moon responds, imbuing Nael with some of the potent energy held within itself, giving her and her weapon a red glow. Using the empowered gun halberd to knock the Warrior of Light unconscious, she turns to the moon, giving praise and expressing her belief that the being would come to its aid, directly praising Bahamut for its power. She turns to leave, walking through the blue flames left by the blast, proclaiming her ascent to the sky to meet with Dalamud itself. The Warrior of Light and the Alliance quickly try to discover where Nael may have disappeared to, soon realising that a small area known as Riven Road ascended to the sky from the Coerthus Eastern lowlands, and Sid makes preparations for the Enterprise to carry the heroic adventurers to the platform. On approach, Nael sends forth chunks of the burning rock from the descending moon at the party, and they eventually arrive at Riven Road, seemingly being used as an altar to Dalamud, with something akin to ley lines upon the surface. The Warrior of Light confronts Nael once more, with the latter hoping to use the adventurer's ether as a sacrifice for Dalamud, glowing brightly and ever closer to the surface. We manage to rebuff Nael's attacks, and in desperation she beseeches the Red Moon once more, losing her mind and being bestowed the name Nael van Darnus, servant to Bahamut and filled with the power of the Elder Primal. She clashes once more with the Warrior of Light, but is again eventually pushed back and defeated, and on her last whims, reaches to the sky towards Dalamud, and disintegrates into pure ethereal energy as a final act of devotion. Following Nael's death, the Warrior of Light experiences a nightmare relating to the incident, awakening on a floating platform surrounded by the bodies of Garleans and Eorzeans alike, with even the Grand Company leaders lying among the dead. Distraught, the Warrior of Light kneels, only to be approached by Nael, who raises her gun halberd, and as the final blow descends, the Warrior of Light awakens, having fallen from their bed. Although the Grand Companies and the majority of Eorzeans appear to believe the realm saved, the Warrior of Light meets with Louisoix once more, and while he appreciates the efforts we put in to put a stop to Nael and the fall of Dalamud, he informs us that the Red Moon still draws closer even now, surmising that whatever was needed to prevent its fall now lies far behind us. He requests that instead we journey to each of the shrines to the 12 across Eorzea, and to pray there for their strength during the coming days. Along the way, the Warrior of Light speaks of the Scions to hear their thoughts, and even Gaius van Baelsar, who states that although the fall of Dalamud would benefit the Empire more than any other, he does not want the land he wishes to conquer turned to ash before he seizes the chance. He even mentions that Nael's 7th Legion sent false intelligence to the Garlean High Command, stating that the Meteor was a success, and that Nael should be regarded as a hero. Returning to Louisoix, he notes the presence of the Stirring Gods, and states that all Eorzea must come together in beliefs of the 12 to have them descend upon the land. Urianger, while worried, believes the prophecy he heard may yet be a blessing, as a verse mentions valiant blades he associates with the Warrior of Light and their fellows. He tells us that, Though heavens spew crimson flame, and hells seep black dooms, by thy hand shall Eorzea look upon a new dawn. Louisoix too expresses his beliefs at a continued Eorzea, knowing that even if we alone survived, we could find our way through the darkness. As a final task, Louisoix requests that we seek out the monstrosities forming due to the chaos, which turn out to be endless hordes of voidsent and nightmarish creatures spawned by Atomos, after which he bids us await the conflict in the southeastern area of Mordona. The skies are an ominous red, complementing the ever closer lesser moon. And as the conflict breaks out with Garlemald, the moon breaks apart, launching a huge Allagan structure onto the battlefield. Attracting the gaze of everyone within its vicinity, Dalamud finally opens, revealing Bahamut within, furious after his many millennia of imprisonment. The worm lashes out and begins to cause rampant destruction, along with the rubble from Dalamud falling upon the land. But Louisoix attempts to shield the adventurers upon the battlefield. Bahamut manages to shatter the barrier, and Louisoix resorts to calling upon the power of the 12, calling forth a spell of sealing with immense power. Symbols of the 12 surrounding Bahamut as the primal is pierced by spears of light. All is for naught, however, as Bahamut breaks the seal and begins to channel Terror Flare. And with no other option to him, Louisoix transports all the adventurers away with another spell, and smiles as he is consumed by the terrifying blast. In the wake of the calamity, many areas were permanently altered, whether it be in terms of damage or etheric presence. The Coerthas Highlands would become swept in constant snows and blizzards, and much of the area would be cut off by new formations of rock and ice. Many areas were destroyed, such as Castrum Novum, which would eventually be replaced by Castrum Sentry. The Burning Wall, once a large formation of cliffs, deemed unscalable by the average climber, would crumble under the rocks from Dalamud, and the area would become crystallized. The Bronze Lake in Lenosha would drain because of the destruction, and reveal the Wanderer's Palace, and the glamour surrounding the lost city of Amdapor and Amdapor Keep would be broken, revealing their dilapidated state to all. Eventually, the Warrior of Light would find themselves entering the binding coil of Bahamut to quell the remaining threat of the Elder Primal and its minions. We discover that Nael van Darnus was not fully defeated at Rivenroad, and in fact evolved to become much more worm-like with wings and claws, and for the first time she is revealed to the group to be Eula Darnus, having impersonated her brother all this time. After her defeat, the final coil becomes accessible, and inside we discover that Louisoix managed to avert much of the calamity thanks to a final effort to strike a blow to Bahamut, partially sealing its power in the process. We go on to face the Elder Primal, finally managing to beat it back and stop its potential re-emergence and continued destruction of Eorzea, as we put Louisoix's soul at ease. In the end, Project Meteor, in a twisted way, ended up being successful, but not to the original hopes of the Garlean Empire. Nael Darnus turned its purpose from being used to wipe out the Primals into one of her own deranged desire to bring down the moon and to release her Lord Bahamut. What resulted was not only the devastation of Bozja, but potentially the entirety of Eorzea as a whole, were it not for the efforts of the Scions, Louisoix, and the Warrior of Light. And although the land as a whole survived, the trauma caused by such an event will never be lost by those happening to have witnessed it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it took me a little bit longer than usual to put out, but I had to get a lot of help from friends about details from 1.0 to being completely clueless on it. So a big thank you to Raine for all the help and proofreading, and a shout out to Dude Where Is My Spoon and Rylik Kell for their footage for Final Fantasy XIV 1.0. I didn't end up using their footage because I had a corruption issue with the files, but I really appreciate their willingness to help me out with the video. If you did enjoy it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Final Fantasy XIV lore, and I'll see you in the next one.